Hello everyone and welcome back to just another booktube channel here on the internet. My name is Anna, and for this video I thought it would be fun if I ranked, not trilogies, but if I ranked the books inside of that trilogy. And I just think it's very interesting because, for example, a lot of people always enjoy the first book a little bit more. They have, I don't want to say like a difficulty in liking the last book of a trilogy because it is very hard for an author to wrap up the entire story and the entire plot and the entire character arcs in a satisfying way. But I always do end up liking the third book more than the first one or even the second. So I just thought it would be very, very fun to see which books I do tend to like most. I know I said it is the third one, but I do have exceptions. And I just think, why not? I just think this would be a very fun idea. So let's just get started. So the first trilogy that I want to talk about is the Poppy War Trilogy by R.F. Kuang, and this is one of the exceptions because my favorite book out of this entire trilogy had to be the first one, the Poppy War. I just absolutely loved how the story started. I absolutely love, any academic setting. I am a sucker for it. I think we all are, and I just loved seeing, because it's not the typical academic setting in the sense of studying a lot. Like, there is studying, of course, like in any school you do have to study, but this is a military academy, and that is something that I've never read before, and it was just so interesting seeing all of the different type of classes that they have, strategy, fighting, history, and how the teachers sometimes behaved and even the students. I just think everyone likes the academic setting, including me. I just absolutely love that. But the book did take a turn that I was not expecting. Like I said, the academic setting only lasts for half of this book, and I was a little bit sad because I did want more of that academic setting, but it wasn't bad. It just shows how war really is because everything stopped. Once they were invaded, everybody's lives were just turned upside down, including school, including the students there that were learning how to fight, in the war and in a possible invasion. And when it happened, everything just became much more difficult, because even though they teach you these things at school, it's never the same. It's just so much harder to apply the things that you learn in real life, and it's just very chaotic. And if you read this book, which a lot of people have, it is very gruesome. The second part is very, very gruesome, and the fact that it's inspired by actual events is even more disgusting. It was disgusting. Everybody knows what chapter 21 means. It was one of the chapters, I think the chapter that, scarred me the most. In all of the books I've read, there was nothing like chapter 21. It was just horrible, disgusting. It was just so despicable, and it truly shows how humans can be monsters, like how monstrous we can truly be to our own kind. So yeah, I just absolutely love the first book. This is definitely my favorite out of the entire trilogy. And for the rest of the trilogy, I actually don't really have a favorite. So let me see if I can pick these up. The Dragon Republic and the Burning God. I like them both equally. And I don't know, they were just a little bit of a letdown for me when it came to the first book. I was just expecting much more. I think they were much slower. In the Dragon Republic, we actually see, a character trying to take down the Empress and trying to establish and install a republic instead of having an empire, because he believes that the people should be able to choose who they put in power. And then the Burning God is just the complete opposite, because you find out that, the character that wanted the Republic and was going to become president was actually corrupt and was working for other enemies and other antagonists. So yeah, it just wasn't something that I was expecting. It still had the vibe of the first book. There was just something missing. I don't know why. I think they are very long, and I think it could be that because I think it dragged on a little bit, especially the Burning God. I think the Burning God was very repetitive at some times, and it was just kind of like, okay, this battle we lose, let's regroup, or this battle let's try and get this piece of land back, that piece of land back, and it was just a lot of back and forth. And I think the Dragon Republic also suffered that, not as much, but it did suffer from that a little bit. But yeah, these two are kind of like a tie for me, so I can't really decide which of these I like best. They're just, kind of the same. The second trilogy that I want to talk about is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and of course my favorite book has to be the last one, The Hero of Ages. And this book was just amazing on so many levels. I did speak about this in length in my top 10 favorite book videos. If you haven't checked it out, then you can please check it out. I talked about it in length, and I'm just going to summarize it a little bit. The reason why I like this the best was because of the climax of everything. We just find out everything and how, just the myth behind the world, how it was created, about the gods, ruin and preservation, their entire plot, the entirety of you know, just explaining how the world worked. It was just insane seeing the characters grow and their endings, because some endings are truly sad, but seeing how they ended up and seeing the plot, you know, just being solved, it was truly satisfying. Like, the conclusion was just really, really good, and that's why I absolutely loved the last book. It was due to the climax, you know, just figuring out all of these things, all of these plot twists and all of these clues, and you just have to, you know, kind of like read and go along with the ride, and that's why I absolutely loved this third book. And obviously, my second favorite has to be, oh, hold on, this is a big book, The Well of Ascension. I know a lot of people prefer the Final Empire over The Well of Ascension, like I said in my other video, but I do prefer this one over the first book because I do love politics. I love political fantasy. I love when we have betrayals and deals that have to be made and negotiations and all that kind of stuff, because when it comes to political fantasy, there's a lot of attention paid to details. So, for example, the way that they dress, the way that they walk, the way that they have to sit, the way they talk, everything just kind of like represents them and shows like, oh, like this person is very confident, this person knows how to speak, they know what they want, they know how to ask for things, demand for things, and that's just something that I absolutely love. I'm such a sucker for it, and that's why I loved the second book, because this big boy, this big chunk of a book is all about politics. It's all about a siege and how they consult two empires from invading Luthadel. And obviously, I also love the growth of Elend and Vin as a couple, and even individually, it was just so amazing to see. But yeah, I do prefer this one over the first one. So obviously, my least favorite in the Mistborn trilogy has to be the Final Empire. Now listen, this is obviously it's not a bad book by any means. It is still wonderful, but the other two, I just preferred, you know, where the plot went and how everything just became so grand and so big, and all the reveals and so many of the clues. I just really love that. But this one definitely has a lot more of world building, obviously, because we are introduced to all of the characters, how the magic system works, how the world works there, and it's honestly so much fun, because this was the first time I read a hard magic system, and that is something that I absolutely love now. Like, every time I read a soft magic system, it just does not hit the same. Like, Brandon Sanderson really made me like hard magic systems. I just loved every rule that they gave us, because it's predictable. You can predict how the magic works and how, you know, certain situations are going to develop and where they're going because of those rules, and he doesn't usually break them. Sometimes he does, but it is because there's like missing pieces of the lore that is missing, so you just understand what is happening. I'm sorry, it's just the book is so heavy that I kind of like have to do this, and my hand is injured. Like, I just burnt my finger, so it hurts so bad holding the book like this, so please don't mind if I, you know, squabble a little bit with the book. But yeah, like, I would highly recommend the Mistborn trilogy. It is so good. The world building, the magic system, everything is just so unique, and I absolutely love this trilogy. Oh my god, I need to drink water. You guys have no idea, like, there's just this huge heat wave here in Portugal, and I think in the rest of Europe, and honestly, this should be illegal. Like, this heat, illegal. Like, I feel like I'm about to pass out at every single moment, and it doesn't even matter if you shower, like, you're just sweating again. Like, I'm completely drenched right now, so please stay hydrated, okay? That is very, very important in this heat wave. The third trilogy that I want to talk about is the Bone Witch Trilogy by Rin Chapeko, and my favorite book out of the entire trilogy is the last one, which means it's the Shadowglass. I also spoke about this book in my top 10 favorite books of all time, and I just absolutely love this, and the reason why, it's the same reason as Mistborn. It's just a climax. I absolutely love when the climax happens of the story, when we have all the grand reveals and the plans and the machinations. Everything is just laid out in the open, and I absolutely love that. Obviously, when it doesn't disappoint, because when it disappoints, then it's a really, really, you know, not a bad book, but it's just not going to be my favorite. I just absolutely love when I don't see where the story is going, or even if I do, there's always like this little twist that I didn't see coming, and that's what I absolutely love in this book. And it gets much darker because this is a YA fantasy, so this is YA fantasy, and it's not that dark. Like, the first book is pretty light, and even the second one, but this one, it does get a little bit dark. We do have some dark moments, and I did enjoy them because it was realistic, you know, for what the characters were going through. It was realistic that these dark moments happened and occurred, and I actually really liked that the author added those moments. But yeah, I just really, really loved this book. I loved all the politics, the conspiracies, everything being revealed. The ending was very fitting. Like, it wasn't, yeah, like, it's not a happy ending to our main character, but it's fitting. It fits her, and I did really like how she ended the entire story and all of the characters. So my second favorite is obviously the second book, The Heartforger. Now listen, this book really surprised me because when I read the first book of this trilogy, it was okay. It was good, not okay. I did give it 4 stars, and I was obviously excited to continue the series, but when I read the second book, this is what solidified this trilogy for me. Like, I absolutely loved where this book went. The author just picks up the story right where you left off in the first book, and the pacing, it is so good. It is well done. It is not too fast, but it's also not slow. Like, it's medium pace. A lot of things are constantly happening, and you get so many clues to the third book. And it's just a really great book because you go on a quest, and I absolutely love when characters go on a quest. You get to see more of the world, more world building, all about of the other cultures, of other kingdoms, etc. Like, this book really solidified the series for me because I just loved this book. Like, this book is almost 500 pages, and I'm a slow reader, and I devoured this. When I tell you I devoured this book, I absolutely did. It is easy to read, obviously, but it was just such an amazing book. And then lastly, the first book was my least favorite, which is The Bone Witch. And the reason why this one was my least favorite was because of how slow it was. This is definitely a setup to the other 2 books. So you do have to go with that in mind if you do want to continue the trilogy. It doesn't mean it's not interesting because I absolutely love the geisha culture. If you like the geishas, and I think it's one movie, or is it a book? I really don't know if it's a book or a movie, The Life of a Geisha. If you love that, and if you liked it, then you're absolutely going to love this first book because it is well done. Like, it is so well done. The culture is so well explored, and you can definitely see the similarities, the inspiration, and it is an academic setting, which is something that I absolutely love. You know, Tia, our main character, goes to an ashaka, and she learns how to be an asha. She learns how to sing, how to dance, table manners. She also learns how to draw runes, how to fight, everything that needs to be an asha, you know, a warrior, and also an entertainer, because that's what geishas did. You know, they entertain a lot of people, and I just absolutely really like that aspect. I love the culture. The problem was the story. It just didn't really, you know, it didn't really move that much, and we had just a little bit, like 2 or 3 clues here and there, but it wasn't anything like, oh wow, oh my god, like, this story is so interesting. Like, it just wasn't. And even Tia, because she was 14 years old at the time, she also wasn't that, you know, developed and that explored. So this is definitely a setup for the other books, but I do highly recommend this trilogy. It is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Like, this is what made me start reading, like, continuously. It was just so good. Like, this is one of the trilogies that is just written for me, and I would highly recommend this trilogy. Next up, we have The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, and I unfortunately still do not own this trilogy because I just read it this year, and I absolutely loved it. Like, it's probably going to be my favorite trilogy out of the entirety of this year. And obviously, you know, as my trend goes, my favorite book out of that trilogy is Jade Legacy. It's the last book, and the reason why is not only because of the plot and the climax of everything, obviously, because this is, you know, the finale, and it has both clans finally clashing and seeing who's the winner. It wasn't because of that, actually, and it was truly because of the characters. Like, the way that Fonda Lee wrote these characters, it actually felt like I was reading about real people. You know, I was just reading about real people, and it was just so, I can't even describe it, because I just felt everything that those characters felt. It was just such a journey with all of the characters, seeing them from very young until they are much older. Oh my god, like, I really don't want to give you guys spoilers, but there was a lot of moments in that book, in Jade Legacy, where I sobbed, okay? I sobbed because horrible things happened to my babies, and they're not so much, you know, they're not really babies because they're, like, literally 40, but, oh my god, like, it was just such a masterpiece. Like, I don't even know, like, whenever I love a book so much, I just don't really know how to explain it, but Jade Legacy, just the character work in that book alone, that's what makes it be my favorite out of the entirety of the 3 books. I do love the plot, and I do like where it goes, but just the characters, man, like, it was just absolutely amazing. My second favorite was Jade War. And the reason why is because I just loved where the story went and how all of the politics and all of, you know, the meetings and negotiations, everything just went down, because the Greenbone Saga is very much a political fantasy. Don't want to make it clear, it is a political fantasy, so you're not going to get, like, a lot of action. You're not, like, obviously there are some fights because this is still fantasy, but it's not action-packed. It is much more political, it is much more, I don't want to say philosophical, but it's much more of a character work than anything else. So I did like Jade War. I love where the story went. I love how the stakes got just much higher, how all of the characters, you know, they were in danger. Like, I didn't know who was going to die, who wasn't going to die. Thankfully, you know, I wasn't that hurt, so it's not that bad. Jade Legacy is horrible, okay? Just don't. Just stay in Jade War if you want to. But yeah, I just absolutely love where the story went and how characters were moving. Just everything about that book was amazing. And then lastly, Jade City is my least favorite. And the reason why it's my least favorite is because the middle part of the book kind of slacked off, in my opinion. So what I mean by is, you know, the first part, I absolutely loved it. You know, getting to know the world, the characters, how everything works, how Jade works, just all of the intricacies of the world that Fondly created. Absolutely loved that. And then the ending, you know, the last part, explosive. You know, a very important character dies. I was not expecting that at all. I was shocked, bamboozled. I was just like, oh my god, like, what is going to happen? Where's the story going to go? And that last part was amazing. Like, there was a lot of action, a lot of things were happening. The problem was the middle. You know, the middle part did drag on a little bit, and it was a little bit repetitive, in my opinion. It was just a lot of thoughts about the clan, what they were going to do to defeat the other clan, what they were going to do to stay afloat and to kind of like survive, all the responsibility bear on the pillar, and you know, just those themes. They are interesting, but it got a little bit too repetitive because we did get the pillar's perspective in the first part, so it was just a little bit repetitive. Nothing bad, but that's why it was my least favorite, because then I think if Jade City hadn't slacked in the middle part, I think it would be on par with Jade War. But I would absolutely recommend this trilogy. Please guys, please read the Greenbone Saga. You're not going to regret it. Just like give it a try. It is just stunning. If you like The Godfather meets fantasy, then you should absolutely read it, because this gangster group is going to become your family. I guarantee it. And the last trilogy I am bringing you here today is the Empire Trilogy by Raymond E. Feist. And my favorite book is actually the second one, which is something that usually doesn't happen. It's either the third or the first one. But this is one of the only trilogies where I absolutely love the second book. And the reason for that is very simple. I just absolutely loved the conversation about the culture in this book. And what I mean is, you know, in this world, we have Tsunade and then we have Midkemia. And this is the world where the Tsunadians live, and they enslave the Midkemians that come from a different planet, from a different dimension. And I just absolutely loved seeing our main character explore the Midkemian culture, because she buys a Midkemian slave, which is, his name is Kevin, and they start talking back and forth about their own cultures. So the Tsunade culture is very much inspired by Asian culture, and I love different cultures. I love that conversation and seeing them both compare their cultures, because like I said, Tsunade is very much Asian inspired and Midkemia is very much Caucasian inspired. So just seeing the conversations that they had about their own differences and how they viewed the world in different ways was so interesting. The way that, for example, they viewed honor, or the way they viewed society as a whole, you know, the classes and the nobles and slaves and just everything. It was just so interesting. I just love when books do this. You know, they just have these really nice intellectual conversations about comparison of cultures, and how both of them learned with each other. You know, they didn't judge each other too much. You know, in the beginning, there's always that judgment like, oh, Tsunade people, they don't mind having slaves, and they believe that slaves can only be slaves. Like, you can never go up in society. But in Midkemia, it's the other way around. Like, you don't even have slaves. Like, people, you know, the most common person can become something really grand. It can become a merchant if he has success and if he works very, very hard. So it's just one of the examples of how the cultures are different, and I love how they stopped judging each other and tried to learn from each other, and how they influenced one another with their own culture. It is very much a political trilogy. Once again, as you can tell, I absolutely love political fantasy. I just find it so juicy, and yeah, this is why the second book was also my favorite. Also, the plot is very good, okay? The plot is good. You have a lot of planning, a lot of betrayals, a lot of things going wrong, a lot of things going right. You even have a huge battle at the end, so I would highly recommend this trilogy. The second book that is my favorite out of this trilogy is actually the first one, because I just loved getting to know our main character, Mara. How she came from, you know, she was going to become a nun. She was actually going to become a nun, and how she had to grow into this leadership role because her older brother passed away in the battle to conquer Midkemia, and how she had to, you know, just put on this mantle of the house and lead her house was absolutely stunning and amazing. I just loved seeing her grow, learn from her mistakes, learn from the people around her, how she became this really powerful young woman, because she was very, very young. She was just 17 when this happened, and it was just so interesting to see her grow, and how the entirety, obviously, you know, in this first book, we get a lot of world building, how the world works, how the politics works, the different type of classes, the different type of titles, just everything everything about this, it was just so interesting to see. And even the plot, obviously the plot is also very interesting because, you know, when it's politics, you just have a lot of betrayals, and that's what I like. You know, I just love dramatic things. Anything that is dramatic and anything that has betrayals, stabbing in the back, sign me in. Sign me up. That is something that I just absolutely love. And obviously the least favorite book was the third one, in my opinion. And the reason why, honestly, I cannot even tell you why, because I don't even remember. I don't even remember what happens in this big chunk of a book. Like, look at the size. I don't remember what happens in this book, which is so sad. Like, I remember how I felt. Like, I remember feeling very shocked, because I do remember the ending. You know, the ending and the final part, all of the reveals about this world was actually quite shocking. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is what this means. Wow, amazing. But the rest of the book, I don't really know. I think in this book, there's a lot of tragedy. I do remember a lot of tragedy happening. So it was very, very sad, because Mada's life is not easy, okay? And take note that this is, you know, there is a big time jump, obviously, because we are following Mada's life. So she's not 17 anymore. I think she's probably close to 40. Yeah, I think she's probably close to 40 in this book, but that is something I absolutely love. I just love following characters throughout their entire life, or the majority of their life, like in the Greenbone Saga, and it has to be. Like, this time jumps are very much necessary when it comes to political fantasy, because politics, you know, it takes time to brew. It takes time to plan everything out and to see your plans come to fruition. So it does make sense to have these big time jumps. But yeah, like the third one, like, it was good. You know, I absolutely loved to see obviously the character growth of Mada, you know, the entire tragedy that happens in her life. But I don't remember much of the plot, and I think that's why this is my least favorite, because we do get a new antagonist, and it's someone that we had met previously, I think in the first book. But I just didn't really, yeah, like, I just didn't really vibe with him that much. I didn't really like him as an antagonist. So yeah, this was the least favorite out of the entirety of the trilogy. But I would still highly recommend this trilogy. Like, it is so good. And that is it for this video, guys. I just thought it would be fun to film a video where I talk about my favorites in each trilogy, and not all of the trilogies that I've read, because otherwise we would be here for like a gajillion hours, months, maybe years even. But I just thought it would be very fun to film a video like that, and just to see what my preferences are. And as you can tell, I just absolutely love third books. I love the last books in each series because of everything that I mentioned. I just love the climax. I just love where the plot goes and how the authors managed to wrap everything up in such a perfect bow. Like, everything was such a perfect ending with all of these trilogies. And I also love the character arcs and where the characters end up, even if it's good or bad, because we have to be realistic. And obviously the second book also tends to be my favorite, because that's when, you know, things start to pick up, things start to move forward, the plot starts to, you know, simmer, the plot starts to become juicy, if you will. I do like first books. As you can tell, there were a few trilogies where the first one was my favorite, but it's just not usually, you know, my favorite. I do like the world building and the magic system and how we are introduced to all of that, and how interesting it can be, and how interesting it is to, you know, meet the characters in their, you know, beginning stages. We are introduced to them and we see them as, like, I don't want to say babies, but they are kind of babies, because the hell that they are going to go through, absolutely love it. And that's why I like and I prefer the last book, because I just love seeing the journey, you know, and I just love seeing the journey come to an end. So I would highly recommend all of these trilogies. Please read them if you haven't. I'm pretty sure most of you have, because most of the trilogies here are mainstream, and that's why I didn't really explain, you know, what they were about, the synopsis, because most of you guys have already read all of these trilogies. They're probably only maybe two, maybe the Bone Witch and the Empire Trilogy are, you know, a little bit underrated in my opinion. And if you want to know more about them, free to, you know, comment below. I will try my best to explain the synopsis and everything, you know, about these books, the tropes, the characters, just everything about them. Yeah, guys, this is the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!